Hi again, everybody. This video is sponsored by contribution from Anonymous, and here's the story. Dear Ollie, thank you so much for telling your personal stories of the narcissistic abuse you endured from your parents and for reading the stories of other victims on your channel. Your input and take on narcissistic personality disorder have greatly helped me in understanding my own lifelong subjection to this type of hellish abuse. I am very grateful to have stumbled across your channel and to tell other YouTubers who have enlightened the listeners so we can begin our recovery. I wrote you a little while ago about my narcissistic mother's abuse of my autistic brother Scott. Here's a little more background on Scott and an update on how his life is going now. I would like you to read this on your channel. It is a very tragic story, and I know it will trigger some people, just as it was for me as I wrote all this out. But I might be able to help some people in their own recovery and recognition of abuse. As a child growing up in a narcissistic household, I did not realize that I was being abused or that all of my siblings were also being abused. It was our normal. Writing this has been difficult, and remembering the awful shit that my brother went through since the day he was brought home from the hospital as a newborn has been very emotional for me. Scott was number 7 out of 8 children born to my parents. He was bright and beautiful baby. His only problems were severe eczema and allergies. As a newborn, his skin was all welty, broken out, and itchy because of allergies. My mother would place him in a wool blanket on the couch, and of course, Scott would cry because the wool made his skin itch and sting more than ever. This was in early September, so it was still pretty hot in Southern California. Even as a 7-year-old kid, I knew this was not the right thing for her to do, but I couldn't say anything out of fear of reprimand. Later, when Scott was about 14 months old and learning to walk and talk, he walked under an ironing board and grabbed the cord to the hot iron my mother was using. All Scott had on was this little t-shirt and a cloth diaper. He ended up pulling on the cord and the hot iron fell off the ironing board, knocking him down, and the iron fell between his legs, severely burning his knee and upper thigh on his hands, taking the skin off his legs. He had burns on his hands from trying to push the iron away. After that, Scott stopped talking or walking for a long time. He did start walking again after the burns healed, but did not talk for about 3 to 4 years. He would just sit on the floor in a cardboard box, silent. He loved the cardboard box and would sit happily in it often. He would even take his bottle while in the box. Scott healed of his physical wounds, but the wound to his psyche was deep and evident. Scott would take his box with him outside and watch the rest of us kids playing in the yard. One day, Scott took his box to the edge of the street, and no one missed him. Later, a neighbor was pulling out of the driveway, and the box blocked his path. So he got out to move the box and saw Scott lying down in it with his bottle. The neighbor was livid and brought Scott home. Later, when my mother came home, the neighbor came over to the house and gave my mother a lecture on watching her son more carefully. One of the things that terrified me was when Scott was about 5 years old, he was accidentally left at a rest stop in Arizona when the whole family was on a road trip to Louisiana for vacation. It was discovered that by my older brother that Scott was not in the station wagon after we had traveled for an hour. We turned around and nearly flew on the way back. To the rest stop. Thankfully, Scott was still there, perched high on top of a rock where he had climbed, and we were able to get him back. I was so relieved he was still there and had not wandered off into the desert and been kidnapped. Another time while we were at the beach, Scott wandered off, and we were all looking for him for a very long time, searching up and down the beach. He was finally brought to a lifesaver stand a mile down the beach, and an announcement was made that a lost child had been found. How does this happen? Why does a mother let this happen to her child when her child is in need of an adult supervision? Another incident was when a patrol car pulled up in front of our house with Scott riding in the front seat. Someone saw him wandering around the neighborhood and reported it. My mother was home at the time. There were many times that Scott would go missing and we would all stop what we were doing and search for him. It became routine for him to wander away unnoticed. Because he could not talk, he was not registered to go to public school and stayed at home until he did begin to talk at age 6 or 7. There were difficulties in regular public school from the beginning for Scott, and he could not keep up. And because there were no programs for special needs children in our area, he was very soon dismissed from public school. Soon after, when a school did open for kids with special needs, he was sent there and was kicked out of that one also, and needed a little later sent to Pacific State Mental Hospital, and then later on to juvenile hall. Scott has lived in group homes all of his life until recent years. Some of these homes were filthy, unsafe, with stopped up toilets, little food, and horrible untrained staff. A nightmare. Scott's SSI payments were taken to pay for his room and board while he was left with just a very tiny amount of spending money. My mother allowed him to languish in this situation for years. His whole childhood and teen years were stolen from him. He was truly the lost child. It is a real sticky situation in getting Scott out of my mother's clutches completely. I did become his payee and the guardian, which gives me a lot of authority over his living conditions and ability to be a part of our small community. But he's still very emotionally attached to her, which she is very well aware of. She does nice things for him from time to time, but the bad far outweighs the good. Scott, even though he has autism, is still gaslighted ruthlessly by my mother, and is very easily so. She has always told him what to think and what to do, never allowing him a thought of his own. She has also appointed herself as his spokesperson and tells him what to say to the family members, doctors, neighbors, and state workers. This is done to help him form an opinion that matches her own. My mother will at times remind Scott that he is very old and could die at any time. She tells him he must get used to the idea that she will die one day. Of course, Scott gets extremely upset and cries. He will call me and I will calm him the best I know how. But this should not be that he is tormented by the one he is so emotionally attached to. Who does that? A fucking devil, that's who. Scott becomes very upset when my mother cannot be reached. She will go to the doctor and will not let him know she is out and about. She turns off her cell phone knowing he will be upset when she cannot be reached. Then he will call me to try to figure out if she was okay. At times he wants me to drive out to her place to see if she is there and okay. Sometimes she accidentally leaves the home phone off the hook, and she has her cell phone turned off. Even if she is at home, she cannot be reached. This is such a torment for him, and I do not tell him that since she is older and is easy to forget. When she gets a cold or the flu, Scott is very anxious and sometimes cries because he is worried that she could die. It is pathetic that this old bitch will get her thrill from the tears of an autistic man. I long to get him away from her completely, but he is so attached. His torment from her will never end until she does die. I hate to say that, but this is true. As painful as this may be for you and him, you need, I'm not sure if he's with you. I think he's with you most of the time. But you need to cut your mother out. And you just need to, if he understands the concept of death, it might be better just to tell him she's dead and keep him away from her, because she's going to continue to torture this poor guy. This poor helpless guy who has no means to defend himself, who she's drawing. Maybe it's best if you told him, kept him away from her and said, you know what, she passed. She's gone. And that sounds harsh and that sounds shitty, but it might be better for him in the long term. And as far as her dumbass is concerned, I would call adult services on her because she's not equipped to stay by herself. That's what I would do. I have come very close to turning her into senior protective services because of how she treats my brother. But that would devastate Scott and possibly ruin my relationship with him. Even if I could get someone else to turn her in for me, I am certain Scott would suffer. All I can do at this point is to be there for them and support them in any way I can. Well, wouldn't he come with you? If you have some kind of guardianship over him, I mean, with her out of the way, you could care for him. This awful woman has even tried to interfere with the independent living program Scott is in. She calls the agency that runs the independent living program and tells them they're not doing their job and will threaten to turn them into their superiors because Scott's bed is not made properly or he has some dirty laundry floors that need to be vacuumed or he didn't get dinner yet. He didn't get dinner yet because they didn't cook it for him. Scott is in an independent living program and he is learning to do all the things for himself for the first time in his life. He is becoming independent. He's not a perfect housekeeper and it takes him a little longer to do his chores, but he's becoming more and more independent. She hates that. His bed is not perfectly made and he does not always vacuum when she thinks he should, but he does have a state worker that comes every day to supervise him while he goes about his daily chore routine and while he cooks his own meals. My mother says all the things Scott is doing now for himself should be done by state workers. She tells him that the workers get paid to cook and clean so he does not have to. And he does not get angry at times because, he thinks they should do what his mother says. I don't know if she truly does not understand how the program works or if she's just trying to sabotage Scott's progress. She's obviously trying to sabotage his progress because if he becomes independent, he's not going to need her anymore. She didn't care how he lived when she sent him off to friggin' a state institution or juvenile hall as a child, did she? So where's all this concern coming from now? She wants him to stay ignorant and so he doesn't become wise to her bullshit. One thing I do know is that my mother and sister and other family members have very low expectations of Scott and always treated him accordingly. It is almost like they don't think he deserves to have the better things in his life. It is sickening, but my mother especially takes delight in sabotaging any progress Scott makes. My sister and her husband are my flying monkeys when it comes to Scott. They check on him when they are in town and always nag him about his imperfect house cleaning. Dude, the guy was sent to a goddamn mental institution in juvenile hall. What do these people expect? Let me tell you, Scott is not the perfect housekeeper like my sister is, but he always passes inspection when the state does the walkthrough and the evaluation of his apartment. My sister threatens to take Sylvester, Scott's kitty cat, because there is sometimes a turd in the cat box when they go to his house. Of course, Scott gets worried that he will lose Sylvester and gets mad at them. I always tell Scott this is abuse, and to speak up and tell them they are abusing him. I don't know if he has the courage to do that, but he has to care about it. But he does call me about it. I do not let him know that the cats are not going anywhere, no matter what. I do let him know the cat's not going anywhere no matter what, and that my sister could get in trouble for abusing him this way. He does not want anyone to be in trouble, and he is very tender-hearted when he knows a family member is having problems. The same thing with Scott's diet. He's supposed to lose about 40 pounds via doctor's orders, and he's on a very good and reasonable diet he's having success with. He does very well on the diet when my mother stops by his place with a bag of cookies, donuts, or half a cake she is sharing with him. She has no respect for anything in Scott's life that brings him closer to good health or independence. He has been placed in a gluten-free diet also, to see if it will help him with stomach issues and eczema, and it does seem to help quite a bit. Scott does not seem to mind giving up gluten since his skin cleared up and his stomach feels better. However, my mother does not approve, and she is trying to talk Scott into going back to eating like he was before the diet. She tells him there is no proof that gluten is bad for anybody, and he can have it if he wants it. All of this is to listen. You got to get these people away from this poor guy. They're horrible. I mean, are you talking to the state workers? I mean, you have to tell the state workers everything. And you got to put your husband in check and tell him to fuck off and to stay out of it. She even has my brother Bill saying that this is just a bad diet and Scott should not have to give up gluten even though the doctor approves it. It seems like every little bit of progress Scott makes to a happy and healthy life, there's always parents, especially my mother, bears the full responsibility for my brother having to live in misery for so many years. They stole his youth and his ability to rise to his full potential just because they did not watch after him and be the parents they should have been. How narcissistic is that? My heart aches for the love and commitment of my siblings, especially for my brother Tim. Tim was robbed of a normal life and loving interactions with his siblings, and the narcissistic mother stole from us in a way that changed all of our lives forever. My brother is making a lot of progress in spite of the opposition. He is staying on his diet, giving up gluten, and enjoys watching movie trailers on his laptop and then picking a movie to go see. He has been afraid to tell my mother about his new laptop for fear that she would disapprove. She has told him that the devil lives in the computer, but I have been able to convince him that she was mistaken. He wanted to keep the laptop secret from her and other family members, and I assured him that it was his decision to make. Scott is slowly learning that he has a voice in his own affairs and can speak for himself, something he has not ever done, but is beginning to a little at a time. He has learned very quickly to use his cell phone and loves it. No one in the family thought he would be capable of using a cell phone. In their mind, it is all about limitations and not about his not about his possibilities. He recently got a new iPad and is catching on to how it works. I think he will do great with it since he loves music, and the iPad can go for a very long time streaming music stations with his very favorite oldies music from the 60s and 70s. I know all the words to many of the songs and sings along to them. One thing Scott really enjoys is going cruising late at night. He loves to get a fountain drink and cruise around while we listen to his favorite music as he sings along. One time he said to me while we were out, "Did you know that I never got to do this when I was a teenager? The other kids got to go out, but I never did." It broke my heart to hear the truth in his words, but now from time to time he will get to cruise around at night with me or his care provider and sing with the oldies. Scott has a lot of happy times in his future. I'm so thankful we live in a state that provides many wonderful programs for adults with challenges like my brother has. Thank you, Ollie, for reading my story, for any advice you have for Scott and myself. One day I will send my personal story about my own life when I can write it out without being sent into emotional turmoil. Thank you again for your videos, and your videos have been a tremendous help. Anonymous. I feel for your brother so much. So much. Because these people are just out to torture. And they're torturing him to keep him from developing so he never discovers the truth. There's other things going on in your family dynamic that are apparent. The abandonment, the neglect, the sending away to a mental institute. I mean, it's awful. It's awful. You got to spend as much time with him. Keep him away. Keep him happy. talk to the state workers, let them know the entire situation and what's going on, and maybe they'll start an investigation. Maybe that's your answer, because it's completely unfair to your brother. It's completely unfair. You need these people out of your life, and he needs them out of his. And if your husband is not going to be a part of the solution, then he is part of the problem. And I would make that abundantly clear to him, period. So thank you for your story. Thank you for your contribution. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody who's muscled through this. Obviously, this is going to be my last video again today. I wanted to get through more. I don't know what to do with this voice. I don't know. But I will get to them. I'll be back. Maybe I can get back a little later on today, get my voice a rest for a few hours. But everything will be gotten to. I'm already about halfway through, so it's a good thing. So probably by the end of tomorrow, I'll have everything caught up, and whatever I hope gets sent to me today, I can get to by tomorrow as well. So with that being said, thank you again. Please leave any opinions or advice in the comment section below. And remember, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, or a narcissist you'd like to expose, you know what to do with the PayPal and the description links in the description box. And remember, when you do send me your story to the email in the description box, please put at the top of the email whether it's with or without contribution and what name you'd like to go by. This is Ollie Matthews. Thanks for watching. See you all again soon. Bye.